the fear of getting out of the will of God,
Yeah.
I think has stopped more people from crossing the threshold into God's purposes than just about anything.
Hey, welcome to Ascend the Hill with Jeremy Austill. I'm Jonathan. This is Pastor Jeremy. How's it going?
It's good. We're coming off Memorial Day weekend.
Yup.
A lot of activity and action over the weekend, and we are back in the groove of a new week.
We are, and it was a good weekend and good restful weekend. Thankfully, the weather held out. It seemed like
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it was a wonderful weekend. There's been some Memorial Days here since living in Tennessee where it's like, yeah, Memorial Day weekend, and on the weekend, not during the week, on the weekend it rains and stuff. So I'm glad it was sunny and everything.
Well, you had a weekend of recovery.
I did.
I can still see some of the remnants of your wisdom teeth being pulled because you look like you got a little bit of puff in the cheeks.
Chipmunking.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. It was my first. I've never been put out. Like I was sedated. IV sedation. I've never experienced that. So I was in the chair, and they hooked me up to the IV, and I'm just waiting for it to kick in. I'm just like, okay, this isn't that bad. And then I just see my vision. It was weird. It starts flickering like up and down. I don't know how to describe it other than it was almost like
freaky.
It was almost like you're trying to keep yourself awake from falling asleep, like watching TV or something. It was like that, but like on another level.
It's like your computer got shut down.
It did, yeah. Well, I didn't even know when it happened. It just started. I realized. I remember having the thought. I'm like, that's a little weird, and then I woke up.
Wow. So I've never had that either. I've never been under any type of anesthesia that knocks you out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've had some topical, like a shot in a spot to numb it and deaden it, but nothing. I've never had laughing gas or any of the sort. Like I have been cognizant my whole life. I've never been drunk. I've never been high. I have no clue what any of that is like, and so. When you woke up, were you groggy?
Yeah, because my wife had to be there, and I guess legally or for some reason she had to stay on property because she's my ride home. I'm not allowed to drive after that, obviously, because I get out of the thing, and all I remember is him helping me like an old man to my car.
Yeah,
I couldn't.
But we love all of our old men.
We do. Sorry, that wasn't a knock against old men.
That's what a young guy says over here. Just by the way, if you're listening,
I sympathize. I guess
I don't. Well, hey, nobody's old though, because what's the age that equates old? Well, whoever you are, whatever your age, you are young.
You are young.
Yes.
And so he helped me to the car. And I was so out of it. And what was funny was my wife recorded the whole thing, so that was fun.
Oh,
but
that's out there.
Yeah. Oh well, it's not on. It's on her phone, so
it could be out there.
It could be. We'll see if she decides to use it against me. We'll see. So we get home, and what's funny is like same thing. I've never gotten drunk or anything, but I can imagine. If you're inebriated, that's probably what it feels like because she was helping me to the house door.
Yeah.
I remember saying to my wife, "This is why we don't drink."
Yeah.
And then she's like, "This is why we don't drink." I was like, "Yeah, all for the honor code." I literally said that in the thing. If you don't know, we have an honor code here for being on team. And I was just like, it was funny that the one thing I'm thinking of while I'm on medication was this is
the
why
honor code.
Yeah, the honor code. This is why we don't. This is why we don't do bad things.
Well,
and
good.
It's all for the honor code. So I was like, hey, at least when I'm under sedation, I'm still somewhat spiritual, I guess. I don't know.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, you had that experience. I had a different experience.
Yeah.
Kingston and I went camping on Thursday night, like full-fledged in a tent, air mattresses, all night long, the whole thing. And I said, Bud, it sounded like you slept good last night because I didn't. I tossed and turned all night. My hips hurt. I've got a great air mattress, but our tent is not long enough for my 6'2" frame.
Yeah.
And so I had to sleep with my knees kind of crunched up the whole time. I mean, I probably could buy a nicer tent or a bigger tent, but I'm cheap.
Yeah.
And so I didn't. And so I stayed scrunched up all night and my hips would hurt and I'd roll over. And every time I'd roll over, it sounded like he was snoring. Well, he woke up and he was like, I didn't sleep a wink.
What?
And so he didn't sleep. I didn't sleep. My allergies were devastated, but we had a great time. We rode four-wheelers. We fished, we turkey hunted, we shot his gun, we got in a kayak on a little lake / pond, got muddy. We had a good time.
That's a great camping weekend.
But I I mean, my sinuses and allergies were jacked up for 2 days. And so that was Thursday night. Friday, I'm fighting it. I'm drinking multiple cups of coffee to get through because if I take a nap, I won't sleep at night. And so I'm just trying to get to bedtime. So I get to bedtime and I slept Friday night 12 hours. Legit, did not wake up, didn't flinch, 12 straight hours. And bro, when I woke up Saturday, I was ready to change the world. And I've been feeling good ever since that 12 hours of sleep. We had a great Sunday. Yesterday, we went hiking at Old Stone Fort. It is it's Native American. I don't even know what you call it. It's a unique Native American structure that's down in Manchester, Tennessee. So
nice.
We hiked for a couple hours. The Duck River is there, and there's a bunch of waterfalls. So it was a beautiful hike. You do some climbs and some descents along the way, and had a lot of fun there. And so had a good weekend. And then, of course, Sunday was good, too. So while you were in recovery, I was being, Mr. Outdoorsman. So it was fun.
I will say there's nothing like, the few times I've gone camping, there's nothing like waking up early to like the cool air with the sun and the birds and everything, like just being in nature.
Which we set the alarm for 4 a.m. because we were going turkey hunting.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And man, I know if you slept outside, you know this. The frogs are out of control. They yell nonstop. I mean, and there were a couple of the frogs that sounded like a woman screaming.
Oh yeah,
that was like it was a little unnerving what a couple of the frogs sounded like. I knew what it was not, but these frogs were out of control. So I'll just admit it. Like, I don't like camping.
Oh, really?
Maybe if I was in a camper and it was but it's just a guaranteed you're not going to sleep. Your allergies are going to be jacked up. You're going to be exhausted. You're going to, the air is damp and it's just, there's no way around it. So,
well, besides all the stuff from the weekend, it was a good weekend, good Sunday.
Yes.
And I'm sure, King David had a little knowledge of what it was like to camp, because in the story from Sunday, they're camping out around Jerusalem about to take it down.
Yes.
And I guess kind of recap a little bit the situation because we're in the sermon series Grit, if you didn't know. If you want to listen to Sunday, it's going to be in the description. Go back in the podcast feed, listen to Sunday.
By the way, good segue.
Oh, yeah.
You grabbed the camping, you brought it to King David. I thought you were going to say because he lived in caves but good segue.
Hey,
sorry.
Trying.
I just couldn't help myself.
I guess kind of recap the situation, because there's a reason why King David has been technically anointed king, but like you said in Sunday's sermon, he's been king over only part of Israel for like 7.5 years. Why is that situation even a thing? Why is he having to take back Jerusalem for his own? Well, what is going on there?
Yeah, so in the message we highlighted this. David had been king in Hebron for 7.5 years, and Hebron was located within the territory of the tribe of Judah. And the people of the tribe of Judah identified David as the rightful king, and they put the crown on his head and said, "You can be the king of Judah." Now, we know based on the history of the Jewish people that eventually Israel and Judah kind of became two separate entities, and they would even war against one another at times. Judah being one tribe, Israel being the other 11 tribes. And so in this instance, Judah, the one tribe, said, "You're the man, David." But the other 11 tribes, they labeled or dubbed Ishbosheth, which was one of Saul's sons, as the heir to the throne. So there were 7 years of contention between those who were loyal to the house of Saul and those who were loyal to the house of David. Eventually, someone murders Ishbosheth, and now all of Israel says, "Bro, it was always you." They literally are like, when we were under Saul and we were winning victories, David, it was really you. So they had some revisionist history going on. So they go to David and they say, "You are indeed the king over all Israel. You're God's anointed. You're God's picked." So David now is wearing the crown of all Israel, like was promised when he was 13 years old. 13-ish.
Yeah.
But there is the city of Jerusalem, which at this point has become a pretty prominent establishment, a city on a hill, a city on really a grouping of hills, an elevated plain. And it was within the territory of the tribe of Benjamin, which was within the greater context of Israel. And really the city of Jerusalem, if you listen to geographers, they'll tell you that it wasn't close to a trade route per se. It's a bit in the wilderness or surrounded by wilderness. It's not necessarily close to a coast. So it's not in a lot of ways the type of city that would have been a capital or a monumental city during that time. But what it was very difficult to conquer because of its elevation and where it was positioned in the greater wilderness of the area. And so David, though, knew like that city belongs to us.
Yeah.
It's the place that I want to rule from, reign from, and reside in. And he takes his troops to the base of the city, if you will, the foot of the hill. And he says, I want it. I want Jerusalem. Now it was being possessed by the Jebusites. And I said all this in the sermon, but the recap. Possessed by the Jebusites, who, interestingly, in Judges 1, it says that the Benjamites, the tribe of Benjamin, they did not evict the Jebusites. And so the tribe of Benjamin didn't keep up their end of the bargain. They didn't do what they were supposed to do. So now the Jebusites are living among them and holding possession of Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And David says, no, the wrong people have possession of that land. That's a stronghold. We're going to take it back.
Yeah. Were the Jebusites occupying, or were they technically part of Israel according to some people's perception, but they were just being cast, like pushed away?
I don't know that there was a lot of antagonism between the Jebusites and the people of Benjamin and the Israelites as a whole. It would have just been like accepted almost that like you live in this land.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
you're among us. This land belongs to us, but for whatever reason, and my guess is because it would have been a hard thing to remove them, the tribe of Benjamin chose not to. And so really, I think what probably took place is the Israelites, the tribe of Benjamin, just learned to maneuver around, navigate with, and cope with the fact that the Jebusites were in the land, which when, a lot of the message was centered on strongholds in our life, things that have should have been dealt with, need to be dealt with, and are holding things that belong to us in the Lord. And a lot of times what happens is we learn to maneuver around, negotiate with and navigate and cope with those strongholds instead of saying, no, that does not belong in my life. I'm gonna take it down.
Yeah. And King David is about to travel through the gutter. That was the title of the message. Give me the gutter.
Give me the gutter.
And retake the city from the Jebusites and actually get the holy city for himself as king and for Israel. So up to that point, you mentioned the sermon. He's been through this. He's been through that. Saul was trying to kill him. His dad didn't even seem to want him that much. Everything was stacked against him, but it seemed like even throughout the past couple sermons, David doesn't have any kind of victim mentality, doesn't seem like.
Right.
And so how do we, when we're in those situations, if we feel like we're in the gutter right now, what are some good ways for us to travel? If we feel like a victim, how do we get ourselves out of that mentality so we can move forward?
Well, I alluded to it in the text or in the sermon that, number one, you go to the word of the Lord and what's his word over you, what's his promises to you. And then you just look at the whole of Scripture and you come to the realization that even Jesus himself had to endure great distress to accomplish his purpose and his mission. And so it's really hard to find people in the Bible that did not have significant conflict prior to them entering God's intentions for them.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes in life we look at conflict and we look at difficult things and we maybe assume that is an indicator we're on the wrong path. And I've shared this before.
Yeah.
But I've come to the realization that hard things are a part of the path. To get to where God wants you to be, you can't always choose the path of least resistance. You have to endure, you have to go through, you have to experience difficulty as a part of getting there. Any endeavor in life, any athlete that achieves greatness knows that there was a lot of pain, there was a lot of sacrifice, there was a lot of dedication and commitment. There were a lot of difficult days to get to that spot. Any inventor, probably felt stretches of failing, stretches of rejection. I've submitted this 1,000 times and it's been rejected. Any author has submitted their book, to 45 publishers. And so life teaches you, the Bible teaches you that the gutter a lot of times is just part of it. And so you can have one of two mentalities. Like you can, experience gutter or difficulty or frustration, and you can shrink in it, and you can lament it, and you can try to figure out how to avoid it or get out of it. Or you can take the mentality of difficult is what I do. Yeah. I was born capable of dealing with this. Like if God put a promise on me and this is the path to the promise, then I'm capable. Yeah. Like God believes in me. Yeah. God believes in me enough that I can get through this or get past this or overcome this. And even there was a stretch, I think we posted the little sermon clip about like I can do difficult things. I was born for difficult. Yeah. That's a mentality. You step into a new ministry assignment, and people are, in the one I'm in. Yeah. And I think I've shared this before. There were people that would say like, boy, you got a tough job. There's things you got to work through. There's challenges that you got to deal with. And my mentality has been, yeah, like if it wasn't, I wouldn't need to be here. Like God put me here for those purposes. Like he assigned me to them. And so I'm not going to shrink from them. I'm not going to be intimidated by it. Like God put me here. God picked me. God called me. Yeah. And I think that is what a lot of it comes back down to. Like, how confident are you that God picked you, that God called you, and that God's hand is on you, and that God is with you in it all? Beyond that, we know that David wrote Psalms. He was a worshiper. He was a writer. He kept this soul spirit connection to the Lord throughout everything that he experienced and endured. Like no matter what I'm going through in my life and in my circumstances, I have this connection to this holy God, this divine maker. And there's life and sustenance in that. And I'm going to stay focused on that. When this is all broken apart, me and him are still intertwined together. And that's where I'm going to put my focus while everything else is like not ideal right now.
Yeah. How do you keep the naysayers or even the people who seem to caveat you're in if someone's in that moment where they're like, I think I'm in the moment where I'm stepping into the purpose that I think the Lord had for me. I've been waiting on it. I've gone through the gutter, and you get into it and then everyone caveats it with, well, it's going to be like this or, whatever. How do you push that aside so it doesn't deter your mentality or your confidence like you were talking about?
Then you just can't receive it. You have to reject it. Now you might not outwardly reject them, but there've been a couple of times along the way where I've just been like, no, I don't receive that. Like to the person, because you're just like, there's this holy indignation in you at times of like, no, I don't accept that. Now, you don't have to say that to the person, but in your soul and in your spirit and in your side conversations with your spouse or your loved ones, I think it's really important to say, I don't accept that. I don't receive that. I don't adhere to that. I'm not going to be intimidated by that. I'm here because of that. That's why God assigned me to this place. And I think that mentality of like God puts you in things because he has put things in you that thing needs. And the whole reason I'm here is to address some of what needs to be fixed, what needs to be changed. So I am not here on just some, lackadaisical, utopian walk through fields of wildflowers. Like, I'm here to get gritty.
Yeah.
I'm here to get dirty. I'm here to get in the gutter.
Yeah.
Because on the other end of the gutter is a place of residing that's called wholeness, that it's a place that you reign from, where you can flourish and thrive. But to get there, you just can't be intimidated by what's not ideal yet.
Yeah. Does that come from basically your private time outweighing the voices of people that are trying to say those things?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It just comes from like knowing the Lord, like being resolute. The Lord put me in this. Like, he has purposes and plans. I mean, I said this early on in becoming the pastor here. The Lord didn't send us here to fail.
Right.
He didn't establish us here to fail. Like, he has dreams. Like, God has dreams for the house, and he intends to see those dreams come to fruition. And he picked me to sit in that spot. Right. And so there's a confidence in that he chose me, and he put in me what was necessary. And so everything around me, if I guard my heart, if I keep a right spirit, if I'm not governed by the illegitimate, inferior impulses of the flesh, then we will see everything God intends. And I have a great confidence in that. But yes, it does come also from a life of prayer. And we've talked about it a lot, that intentional, almost liturgical prayer.
Yeah.
Like, where I'm praying certain things from the Psalms and from the scriptures, and I'm praying them with such repetition that they have become locked in my heart. Now, that doesn't mean, and I've said this before too, that doesn't mean that you don't come up against something that causes some shaking in those areas. But man, I've got roots dug down into truth, and you just keep reverting and referring back to it. So, yeah.
When we have that word from the Lord, this vision or this whatever he's spoken to us, what are some ways, maybe even in your past, where you're like, I have this word from the Lord? What are some ways that you've been able to, I guess, verify it or like, no, this is what the Lord is saying. It's not just a thought that I'm just having.
Oh yeah. Well, I have a wife,
right?
That's a big help in that. So there hopefully is somebody in your life, or a small collective of somebody's, that are helping you discern the Lord. For me, I had my wife, and we're just using this instance of the church. I had Michelle. I had my boss, Pastor Terry Bailey. I had 2 or 3 other people that are very dear friends that want nothing but the best for me. That you have some dialogue with, and you hear their feedback, and you hear what they're saying. Even the call to preach, before I knew it, I had a pastor in my life that knew it. I had a youth pastor in my life that saw it. My mom, my grandmother knew it. Like, before I sensed at age 15 the call to preach, there were 4 people in my life that knew that call was on me. So when it was awakened to me and I started telling it, I had these 4 people that in various ways were affirming it and saying, yes, 100%, this is accurate. And so people, that's why the body of Christ is so important. It's not just so we can, have a life group that we have common interest and we have, a friend group to hang out with. No, the body of Christ helps you discern the voice of the Lord, and helps you, helps to affirm what the Lord's doing in you and through you. So that's one way. I've had dreams in the past, not many, but I've had literal dreams in the night. I've interestingly enough, I had a pastor that I don't know real well, but somebody that's of great significance in the kingdom. He's got an incredible church in our region of the Southeast. And he just one night pulled me aside and gave me a word that, he's like, I don't know you. I don't know the, real well, but I don't know the situation, but it was really specific, and it was really accurate, based on what I was navigating. And so the Lord uses the body. The Lord uses the people closest to you. And I think part of discerning, is this the Lord speaking to me or not, is I've always left until I'm just certain.
Yeah.
You leave a door open of humility that says, I could be wrong.
Right.
And if I am, that's okay. There's worse things than being wrong.
Yeah.
But because the Lord's going to ordain my steps and he's still going to get me where he wants to get me. So I always tried to keep a door of humility open. But at the same time, man, when you've got a word, and then when I kind of joked around, can't nobody tell me nothing.
Yeah.
When you got a word, somebody else coming and saying something to you, it just doesn't, somebody bringing doubt or negativity, and I think the enemy does that. He'll try to stir up your insecurities. He'll try to stir up your fears. He operates with intimidation. And so he'll use well-meaning people to say things to you that touch parts of you that don't need to lead the way.
Yeah.
And then also he'll use jealousy in people and their own insecurities. The enemy will use that and they'll speak out of those things,
Yeah.
But anyway, it's, there has to be some resolve in you to just like, no, I know what the Lord's doing and, I'm confident in it. And it might be like, I don't know all the steps.
Yeah.
But I know where I'm going to end up,
Yeah. And sometimes I feel like we can be in that, like, well, what if I'm doing the wrong thing? What if I'm taking a risk on the wrong thing? Do you think that we can sometimes carry too much pressure with trying to operate in obedience even if we're not sure if it's the right thing and we have to leave that open door?
Yeah. I've watched a lot of people, paralysis by analysis, the fear of getting it wrong, the fear of getting out of the will of God.
Yeah.
I think has stopped more people from crossing the threshold into God's purposes than just about anything, which I think is a really inferior idea of the will of God. Ultimately, the will of God is I'm walking in right fellowship with him. I'm walking in communion. That is the ultimate will of God. And the ultimate call on all of our lives is a call to the Lord.
Yeah.
Not a call to a purpose, it's a call to the Lord. And so, Michelle and I, we went and planted a church in Beaumont, Texas.
Yeah.
I can see right now how that played into the rest of the steps of my life to this point. Right. But also looking back on it, I can see where I made that decision out of some of the wrong places in my heart.
Yeah.
And I think maybe it was a good idea, not necessarily a God idea. There's nothing wrong with what we did.
Yeah.
And there were people that were saved. There were people that were touched, And that season led Michelle and I into a bit of a wilderness season, which was the best thing for us. But I point all of that out to say, because it didn't, flourish the way maybe we had in our minds that it would. You might think, well, I missed the will of God, or I took the wrong risk, or I made a wrong decision. But here I sit today and I see fully and completely how the Lord, one way or another, whether that was exactly what I was supposed to do and I needed to, make a decision that led me into a great humbling.
Yeah.
Or, I could have done something different. But I, even with Cornerstone, if I really felt confident, like I've got a word from the Lord, like this is going to happen. But if it didn't, I'm okay, I'm going to regroup.
Yeah.
Like the Lord still has plans for me. He still has divine intentions for me. He's still going to do a great work through my life. I don't know. I'm just not afraid of I'm not afraid of like missing it in that way. I've seen too much of the goodness of God.
Yeah.
And I've seen how given enough time in life, if my heart stays right before him, I'm gonna end up on the right path. And maybe the only actual path that is right is the path of pilgrimage and fellowship to the Lord.
Right.
And everything else is just, I don't know. It gets convoluted when you start talking about the will of God.
Yeah.
but that's some ramblings.
Yeah.
On the idea.
No, that's great, because I think, people can be in those seasons of, well, what if it's not this? What if it's not that? And if it's like, well, if your heart is pursuing him, it's probably not going to be a catastrophic thing.
I've told a lot of young leaders this: the worst thing you can do is fail.
Yeah.
But there's worse things in life than trying something and it not working the way you thought it would.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's just it's you learn.
Yeah.
It refines you, it grows you, it develops you, it prepares you for whatever's next. There's way worse things than taking a step of faith or a risk or whatever, and it not ending up there's just way worse in life.
Yeah.
You're still living. For me, I've still got my family, I still got my kids, I still got my relationship with the Lord.
Yeah.
You're gonna be all right.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have any money left in your bank account, you can make more money.
Yeah.
You'll figure out a way. You eat some pork and beans for a little while, you downsize your house.
Yep.
And there's worse things in the world than having to sell your boat.
Yep.
I'm not trying to make light of it, but like the worst that can happen is you can fail. The worst that can happen is this just don't go the way, I thought it would.
Yeah.
But I'm going to stand before the Lord one day, assuming that I keep my heart right with God. I'm going to stand before the Lord one day in the splendor of his glory. And this will all have just been a snippet, a vapor of the journey of eternity with him. So don't let fear or intimidation or insecurity or uncertainty of outcome to be too much of a dictator in what you do and what you don't do. Like if it's in your heart and you've got people around you that are affirming and confirming, go for it.
Yeah.
And just see what God will do.
Yeah. Well, and there's still more to David's story too, because he's still got more stuff to go through. He's not done just because he's king now.
Right.
So what else is coming up this weekend for good old King David?
Well, we are going to move to the very next chapter after he takes Jerusalem. And I'll just kind of leave it at that. If you want to read ahead, you're welcome to. But we're going to probably spend 3 more weeks in the life of David through Father's Day.
Yeah.
But now it is post crown. Now he's wearing the crown. And, when you are successful, when you do start getting some momentum in life, when you do see the fulfillment of some promises, the game's not over.
Right.
Like now you have to manage your heart in a whole new way. You have to, when you've been pursuing one thing and you finally get it, what do you do next?
Yeah.
And that, man, there probably are way more people in the church than you'd realize that they've gotten a hold, like they are successful. They've gotten a hold of their promise. They have taken a hold of it. And now that pursuit was such a monumental part of their faith journey and their relationship with the Lord and their focus and their effort and their attention. And once you get it, it can, what do you do from there? What do you, and we'll find that David didn't handle that real well at times. He made some good decisions. He made some bad decisions. And then again, we'll finish it on Father's Day. And then probably we'll finish Grit on Father's Day. And then probably from there through the rest of the summer, I'm going to just take Psalms that David wrote and I'm going to break them down.
Yeah.
And we kind of did that with the Feed My Sheep series.
Right.
We spent all of that time with Peter and Jesus in what was the title of the series?
Can't remember.
I mean, I wrote a book on it, but
even better.
Even better. So we did an Even Better series, and my gosh, we did Even Better. And so we followed it up with 1 Peter, Feed My Sheep. Let's hear what Peter has to say. So So now what we've been doing with David is basically looking third person at his story, third person writing of his story. I want to follow that up through the rest of the summer with first person writing from David's heart. And so we can learn a little more along the way. And then I'm looking forward to August. We're going to do a new series in August called Alignment.
Ooh.
And so that'll be fun. So the last thing I guess I want to say on the sermon Sunday is there should be something in you that says, if there's a wrong, I'm gonna contend to make it right.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna stand against it. I'm going to be resolute that I'm not accepting any Jebusites living in my territory. I'm gonna go for it. Interestingly, final little thought, some don't pay as much attention to this as others. For the preachers that are listening, I've really struggled with this message coming into it because I had several, I thought, important thoughts throughout the message, and I wasn't sure how they were going to all come together.
Yeah.
And I was really struggling with because I don't know if you've picked up at this point, when we leave a Sunday, I want there to be one dominant thought that everybody can go away with. Like, man, this is the real thought of the day. This is what the message was really about. And I was just like, man, I've got this thought here, this nugget there, this truth there. How am I going to, get through all of it? And I told Michelle, like, I'm just going to kind of, I know the material.
Yeah.
I know all the different main thoughts. I'm just going to step away from my notes a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to, whatever's in, I'm going to let it out.
Yeah.
And so I just felt there was just a different flow from me on Sunday because I just was like, we'll end this wherever we end it. I mean, I really had a little bit of an open-ended, I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to land this, which for an over-preparer like me is not, I mean, you see, I've usually got 13 pages of notes.
Yeah.
And I still had close to 13 pages of notes. But I just was like, sometimes you just got to let loose and trust that the Holy Spirit will lead you along the way. So,
yeah. Well, make sure you're here for this Sunday. Let us know in the comments if you need prayer for anything, or call the church at 615-865-6655. We're here for you. We want to see you this Sunday, and look for the podcast next week as we dive deep into this Sunday's sermon. Thank y'all for being here. Thank you so much, Pastor Jeremy. See y'all next week.